everyone, and welcome back to the Tank Encyclopedia channel. We'll be taking a short break from the green pastures of Steam-supported games and take an excursion in other realms of tank gaming, namely seriously retro ones. Published in 1990, 29 years ago, Battle Tank was developed and published by Absolute Entertainment, a long-defunct company that was responsible for a number of games on the old console generations, including 2 more tank games. This game was made for the venerable Nintendo NES console, so it is going to look and sound the part, but let's see if this oldie still has in it to be fun. Battle Tank is a vehicular combat game where you control a single tank and have to take on large numbers of enemies. The goal is simple: take out everything on the map without getting killed. Do that 10 times and that's the game. Which is significantly harder than it sounds, mostly because the game does not feature any type of save system. If you lost, it's back to square one for you. Typical NES mentality over there. The tank is fairly easy to drive once you figure out how to control the thing. 1990 was the time of game manuals, and there's nothing in the game itself that will tell you how to drive. Once you figure that out, though, you set it at whatever speed you desire to stay at, and then simply steer left and right. Aiming, however, is a bit more difficult. The tank's turret cannot rotate, so you have to turn the whole tank round to aim. Interestingly, however, you have to range on your target, meaning that even if you are facing the enemy, if your gun is not in the right elevation, you will miss. The shells have an entirely weird drop, but this is a nice feature that is missing from most modern tank shooters. The game has 2 travel modes, regular and through the map. The map, besides showing you the position of all enemies, also allows you to move far faster on the battlefield, which is a blessing and a curse, as I have often changed to the map travel mode just to find out I was pointed right at a minefield. It also has that NES typical quirk that if you reach the border of the map, you will reappear on the opposite side. The enemies you'll be facing are tanks, helicopters, mines, power plants, fuel tanks, and strongpoints. While it is nice that the game tries to show a bit of the importance of destroying enemy logistics with power plants and fuel tanks, I can't help but feel this was a good idea poorly implemented. The mines are an awesome addition, as they will really force you to mind your step. They're usually no more than a pathfinding annoyance, but in later missions, where there are a lot of minefields, going into a high-speed chase after an enemy tank might get you into serious trouble. After you've cleared all the enemies, except the mines, a new objective appears on the map called a strongpoint. Once you reach it, a set-piece battle starts in which you are tasked with taking out an enemy important objective, ranging from an airfield to an enemy fleet. However, with the strongpoints, as with the other enemies in the game, all you have to do is find the right strategy and then just mindlessly apply it, which is further made easy by the fact that there are only 3 types of opponents. Playing gets kinda brainless after a while. The last thing of note on the map are the Nato Headquarters, which are locations where you can repair, refuel, and resupply. However, why there would be Nato Headquarters deep behind enemy lines is something that totally escapes me, as is the fact that the headquarters of one of the largest military forces on the globe are just some dilapidated garages. Damn budget cuts, man! You have limited amounts of fuel and ammunition, so you have to keep a watch on those counters. I had a couple of occasions when I was engaged and clicked the fire button only for nothing to happen, which is again quite interestingly realistic for what is basically a really arcade game. Your tank can take 5 hits and on the 6th, it is destroyed. It doesn't matter what hits you, tank, helicopter or mine, it'll always take out 1 bit of life. If you do die, the game does allow you to restart the mission you are on, but you get this grace only once in a playthrough. The game is pretty difficult, but this was the only way to extend the playthrough time back then, while also allowing you to complete it in 1 sitting. So prepare to die. A lot. If you do play with saves, you'll find you can finish the whole thing in a little bit over an hour. The maps are featureless. There is no terrain, no buildings, no vegetation, no anything but vast flat expanses that change color from mission to mission. The gameplay is an odd mix of arcade basics with a lot of more realistic features crammed in, but its tough difficulty also makes it appealing for me in a Super Mario Bros. Kind of way. I do entirely expect that this won't work for everyone. However, repetitiveness is certainly a huge issue, and I would have probably laid down the game long before completing it if I didn't want to do this review. I could honestly swear that there was no such thing as a story in this time-forgotten game, but there's the slightest smidge of one in the game manual. Apparently, the reason NATO went to war against the Warsaw Pact, leading to the massive destruction you cause, is that your NATO commanding officer is held hostage, and you have to go in, tank Rambo style, and save him. On your own, against several tens of enemy tanks and helicopters. Okay, not the shittiest story I have ever heard, but the game completely ignores it, and at the end, there's no reference to actually saving the bloke. Just a creepy picture of a tanker standing on his vehicle, looking victoriously in the distance. So yeah, the story is an afterthought that they just crammed in the manual. When I saw the game cover, I thought to myself how nice it is to have a game that features the M60 pattern. It's a nice tank that I feel does... Nope, manual says M1 Abrams. Well, okay, wait, 150mm main gun? What is this, Thumper? No, that's 140. Wait a second, the driver is in the turret, so this is the MBT-70? Okay, damn it, this is confusing. Okay, good that they at least show the tank when you're going in the HQ. And it's a levered one. My god, they have managed to make a bloody mess of the whole tank aspect of a tank game, and it's not helped by the fact that the enemy Soviet T-72s also look like bloody leopards. Now, passing over that catastrophe, the tank you're driving comes with some quite interesting features, including machine guns, which can kill tanks if you insist enough, smoke, which stops the enemy from aiming at you and is absolutely the only way to get through strongholds, a barrel-launched guided ATGM that can also take out helicopters, and a 150mm main gun that has never heard of the concept of loading. Okay, maybe these aren't so well done, but see World of Tanks, a dumb game from 3 decades ago, can have smokes and ATGMs and machine guns. Why can't you? You're an embarrassment, World of Tanks, you're an embarrassment! Now, the tank fighting in itself is maxed out weird. This is not armor combat, it's jousting with cannons. Every engagement starts with you and the enemy tank facing each other, going at speed, and both of you can only fire forward. Then the enemy tank will turn chicken at one point and run in the other direction, and everything turns into Need for Speed with tank guns. It's hilarious and totally disconnected from reality, but kind of fun. The helicopter fighting, on the other hand, is the stuff of nightmares. Helicopters will just circle around you like vultures and strafe you every time they pass by, and the interval in which you can successfully get some shots on target is really limited. And again, the fighting itself makes no sense, as I killed most helicopters with the main gun, which is nigh impossible in real life. Wait a minute. Machine guns, ATGMs, smoke, helicopters.
You got a hole in your left wing!
Oh my God!
Like most NES games, Battletank doesn't have a tutorial per se. If you want to learn how to play the game, you have to read the manual, which I honestly had to do since I couldn't, for the life of me, figure out how to get the bloody tank to go forward. Now, the manual is competent at getting you to know most of what you need to play the game, although it is quite dull and sterile. Still better than nothing. Quite expectably, the AI in the game is incredibly simple-minded. The enemy tanks have just 2 behavior modes, charging in like madmen and running away like scared chickens, and their shooting is terribad. In the meantime, the enemy helicopters just circle around you trying to drop their bombs on your shiny little head, which they do quite competently unless you are going at 15 miles per hour, at which point they suddenly can barely hit you because, reasons? Well, there's not much the AI can do anyhow, as there's no terrains or buildings to hide behind or anything, but in general, you won't fight the AI as much as you'll fight their sheer numbers. The interface in Battle Tank is surprisingly bulky, taking up significantly more than half the screen. While I can take an educated guess that this was meant to mimic the constricted visibility afforded to the tank crews, it feels significantly excessive. Its aesthetics do strongly point in this direction as well, as the various parts are made to look like proper dials, indicators, and digital displays of the time. It does its job of being informative, giving you all the required data, and then some that you don't actually need. The part I'd like to praise is the map, which interestingly serves not only as an information source, but also as part gameplay mechanic, allowing you to travel large distances that would take annoyingly long to cover by simply driving. I would also like to highlight the radar, which makes orientation far easier and is crucial when engaging helicopters so that you can know where they will be coming from. However, all in all, I have mixed feelings about the interface. It tries some interesting things, but it simply covers too much of the screen. The graphics of Battle Tank can be adequately described in two numbers, 256 by 240. That is the resolution of the Nintendo NES, and along with the other limitations of the platform, gives the game its pixelated, rudimentary look, and the 8-bit colors also don't help. While this can be an attraction for retro lovers, for everyone else it will probably be a major turnoff. And even within these confines, the graphics are not extraordinary. The terrain is completely featureless, only changing color, as do the mountains in the distance. The enemy units have only 3 drawing distances and only a couple of sprites for the various directions, which makes leading your target somewhat difficult. Furthermore, because this isn't real 3D, really funky things happen when you are too close to an enemy, with the sprite moving impossibly fast across the screen and making aiming impossible. However, I do have to add in that the strong points at the end of the missions are pretty nicely done. However, all in all, unless you have a retro fetish, the graphics are expectably terrible. 8-bit audio can sometimes be amazing, but Battle Tank does not hit that particular quality. The only music in the game that plays in the menu and at the end of the missions has a militaristic drum quality, but it is highly repetitive and quickly started getting on my nerves. The engine and track sounds are also annoying, and all the destruction effects sound hollow. However, I did especially appreciate the helicopter sounds, which start way before the helicopter itself appears on screen, giving you some time to brace yourself for the upcoming battle. Otherwise though, I didn't appreciate the audio even when taking into account the age of the game. I honestly think that Battle Tank is an extraordinary testament to what could be achieved in those early years of gaming with severely limited hardware and capabilities, and from this historical point of view, it is amazing. As a game to be played today, however, I would not recommend it unless you have a strong retro boner, and even if you do, there are better retro games to spend your time with. The graphics and audio are typical of the era when the game was made, and the gameplay is quite quirky. Add to this the fact that it is a bit difficult to obtain this game legally, as you'd need an original NES. The original game itself costs around $10 to $15 on Amazon right now, so that is not that bad. Still, unless you are a collector, there are better things on which to spend your time and your money. And that's it for this video. Thank you for stopping by and watching. If you've enjoyed it, please click the subscribe and like buttons and leave us some feedback. We always love to hear from viewers. Also, please consider donating on our Patreon. The money gathered there is used for the amazing illustrations on our website that we are regularly releasing along with new articles. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Reddit. If you use Discord, there's a link to our community server in the description. Anyway, this was all for this video. I'm Luke, and until next time, keep us in your sights.